Hello everyone, this is Randy from Programmer Zen. Hope everybody's doing well today. Today I want to give you a challenge. Every now and then the internet gives challenges and people have to figure it out and submit answers. This was a challenge I found on the web, and what it is you have 100 doors and you start by multiples of 1. So you count from 1 to 100, and if the door is open, you close it. If the door is closed, you open it, and then it goes by multiples of 2, and then it goes by multiples of 3. So let's see what it does. This is multiples of 1. And when this finishes, it's going to go by multiples of 2, and then multiples of 3. And here's the multiples of 2. And you keep incrementing the multiple by 1 every time. And go through now it's going to do 3s. So the goal of this is to implement this. You should be able to pause it and restart it. The active door is red. So you can download the assets from the links below. Give this a shot. Pause the video. And when you come back, I will show you my implementation of how I implemented this. So I got Xcode all fired up. We're going to create an app. I'm going to call it 100 Doors Demo. It's a Swift UI, the language Swift, and there's none for storage. I put mine in projects. You have to put yours wherever you want. You don't need a Git repository, and we're going to create it. Alright, so let's get rid of Hello World. And what we're going to do is we're going to use a lazy V-grid. And lazy V-grid is different than a grid because it's only going to draw what's necessary. But since I'm going to size it so they all fit on the screen, there really isn't much of a difference. But you can mess around with this lazy V-grid. It's something very nice to learn. And it's more powerful than the grid, so that's what I'm going to use. So it's going to go in a vertical direction. So you got to define the columns. And I'm going to call them columns. And that's lazy V-grid, and we're going to have columns. And now, since we have 100 doors, we're going to say for each 0 less than 100, index n. And we're going to have a z-stack for each element. Alright, lazy V-grid cannot find columns, so we have to define columns. So we're going to say let columns equal, and it's going to be an array of a grid item. And so the v-stack goes vertically from top to bottom, and you're going to define the columns, so there's going to be 10 of them. And we're going to say dot flexible, and there is no minimum. And now we're going to need 10 of these for the 10 columns. So that defines our columns. Alright, my assets folder, I have 3 bitmaps. One for an active door, which is the red one for the closed door, and one for the open door. So what we're going to do right now is we're just going to hard code one of them to get our grid going. We're going to make it resizable. We're going to make it scale to fit. And we're going to give it a frame. And we're going to set the height. And we're going to calculate that. And I'm going to call it height. And what we're going to do is we're going to say let height equal. It's going to be the size of the screen. Dot height. And we're going to subtract 75 for the padding, and then we're going to have a button up top. And then we're going to divide that by 11. The reason we're going to divide that by 11 is we have 10 rows, vertical rows, and we're going to have a start-stop button up top. So it's going to be let height. UI screen, it needs to be dot. Okay, I want to do a little bit of padding for the lazy grid. So I want to do padding bottom 50, and I want to do a horizontal padding. Padding horizontal. So there's our lazy grid layout. All right, so now let's go ahead and do our button. Button's going to be at the top. So we're going to say button and label. And for the label, we're going to have a Z stack. It's going to have a rounded rectangle with text on top of it. So we have rounded rectangle, corner radius of 20. And we want a fill color dot blue. It's dot fill. And then we're going to have the text. Right now we're just going to say start, and the foreground color is dot white. And that's dot foreground. And we're going to give the label a frame. So it's dot frame. Width, we're going to make it 150. Then the height, we're going to make it 40. We're going to give it a font, dot large title. We're going to give it a padding on top. And it's going to be dot top 75. I made one small change. This used to be 11. It didn't quite fit, so I changed it to 12. It used to be 11. And the start button, and I ran off the bottom a little bit. I made it 12 to make each door a little bit smaller, and it fits just a little bit better. So there we have our button and our lazy grid. So that's what our layout's going to look like. All right, so we're ready to start our view model, but before we do that, I want to create a timer. And we need a timer because when you start an event such as pushing on a button, the GUI doesn't get updated till that event finishes. So when you click start, if you go through the whole process of opening and closing all the doors for all the multiples, you won't see any animation. All you'll see is all the doors closed and what the finished product is when the event finishes. So we're going to create a timer. We're going to set it for 0.25 seconds, which means it'll toggle 4 doors a second, and that's what's going to be the basis for our animation. So we're going to say timer.publish every 0.25 seconds, and it's going to be on main, in common, and it's going to be auto connect. All right, so that's going to create our timer. We're going to get an event fired every 0.25 seconds, and for each of those events, we're going to handle 1 door. So the event that gets called by the timer every 0.25 seconds is called on receive. It's going to be on the timer. So we're going to have a begin and an end, and it's going to have close bracket. It's going to have an end variable, and what we're going to do is we're going to call our view model dot on timer. Now we don't have our view model yet, so we're going to get an error, but we're going to implement it now, and then we'll create a variable for it. And we don't need any of this. Cannot find view model. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and create the folder for view models. We're going to call it new folder. We're going to call it view models, and let's create a folder for our view. And we're going to put the content view in the view. And the view models, we're going to create a view models class. It's going to be a Swift file. And we're going to call it view models. So we're going to declare our view model as a class that implements the observable object protocol. So we're going to have 3 published variables, published, var. First one's going to be is open. It's going to be of type bool. And we're going to instantiate it to an empty array. The next one is going to be the current door. So we're going to say at published var cur door, and if it's not running and it hasn't been initialized, it's ready to get started, it's in the wait state, we're going to make cur door -1. So if cur door is 0 through 99, it's been running. And then the last one is at published var is running, and that's going to equal false. So we have an init, and the first thing I'm going to implement is the start stop button in the content view. And we're going to toggle the is running button. Okay, now let's go back to the content view. All right, the first thing we got to do is we got to create our view model variable. So we're going to say at state object. It's going to be a private variable var, and it's going to be view model equals view model. And down here, where we do the start stop, we're going to say view model dot start stop. View model dot start stop. Now what that's going to do, fail to build, what do we got? Oh, the timer is still, we haven't implemented that yet, so let's get, so it's going to run. Now what we're going to do is we're going to change the text of the start button. Now what we could do is just check the variable view model is running, and if it's true, we know it's running, so the text would be stop. If it's false, we know it's not running. Did we want the text to be start? So let's go back to our view models. But what we don't want to do is we don't want our content view to access these variables directly. And this is important. This is what employers will ask you about to see if you know how to do this or not. We want to make these private. Now, if that's a private variable, how are you going to know whether is running is true or not? And what we're going to do is we're going to make a wrapper function, is running. And that's going to be a bool. All that's going to do is return the value of is running. But it's going to be as a wrapper function. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back down here to the content view, and where we do the text start, we're going to say view model dot is running. If that is true, we're going to say stop. Otherwise, we're going to say start. So let's run it and see what it does. Start, stop. So now we've toggled the start stop button. Now we got to go back to our view model, and we got to implement our timer. But before we can start implementing the timer, we've got an empty Boolean array here, whether the door is open or not. We need to initialize them, all 100 doors, to false, because they're going to all initially be closed. So we're going to say for in 0 less than 100, we're going to say is open dot append false. So what this append's going to do is every time each door, it's going to add an element to the array. So we're going to do the timer now. We're going to say func on timer. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to say if not is running, we're going to return, because there's nothing to do if we're in the pause mode. Now there's going to be 3 cases here. We're going to say if cur door is less than 100, that's 0 through 99, we're going to evaluate the door. And what that does is it's just going to toggle it. So we're going to say is open cur door dot toggle. So now that we've toggled the door we're evaluating, we need to reset cur door. We need to prepare it for the next time through, and we do that by saying cur door plus equals skip count. So if we're doing multiples of 3, it's going to add 3 for the next door to evaluate. And we haven't done skip count yet. So let's go declare skip count. So up top, it's not going to be a published variable because it's not used anywhere in the content view. So it's going to be private var skip count equals 1. So it's going to start with 1 and go 1 to 100. And after we've done that, what we need to do is we need to check if we've evaluated all 100 doors. So we're going to say if cur door is greater than 99, we're going to increment skip count. So skip count plus equals 1. So if it was 3, it's now going to increment it by 4 for the next multiple. And we're going to set cur door equals skip count minus 1. Okay, and then the last thing we got to do is we got to see if we've finished evaluating the all 100 multiples. So we're going to say if skip count is greater than 100, that means we're done. So we're going to say skip count equals 1, cur door equals -1. That means we're in the ready state, waiting for you to hit the start button and start the whole process, and is running equals false. If you're confused at why we set cur door to skip count -1 when we reset the multiplier value, is because the doors is a 1 based index, so it goes from door number 1 to door number 100, while the is open Boolean array is 0 based index. So the 0 index on is open corresponds to door number 1. So if we're doing the multiples of 5, door number 5, the first value is the is open Boolean value for index number 4. With that being said, what we need to do now is we need to toggle the images, whether the door is open or whether it's closed or whether it is active. So what we need to do is we need 2 more wrapper functions. I'm going to put them right up top here. So the first one is func is open, and that you're going to pass in an index of type int, and it's going to return a Boolean, and we're going to return is open of index. That will tell you whether the door is open or whether it's closed, and that will determine which image you display. The next one is we need to know what the current door is, and that's an int, and that's just going to return cur door. So that one we're going to need when we do the image. If the index that we're displaying the image for is the current door, it's going to be red. Otherwise, we need the is open. If the door is open, we're going to display the open image. And if it's not open, we're going to display the closed door image. So let's go back to the content view where we display our image. And what we're going to do is we're going to check if the index we're displaying is the current door. So it would be view model dot cur door. If that equals index, if that's true, we're going to display the active door. Else, we're going to say if view model dot is open index int will be index. If that's true, we want open door. Else we want closed door. Closed door. There we go. All right, now we're going to uncomment the timer. Now let's go back to our view model where we hit start stop. What we need to do is we're going to say if cur door equals -1, we're going to set cur door to 0. And it should start running. The other thing we need to do is with this next time it gets run, after it ran once and you're waiting to hit start again, is we need to do this again. So what we're going to do is we're going to call a reset. But the difference between that and this reset is we're not going to append to the array. We are going to just update it because now the array, right here we have an empty array and added 100 elements. Now that the elements have all been added, all we have to do is say is open I equals false. All right, let's run it. Oh, it's missing the text. Yes, it's supposed to print the text right here. What it's going to do, if the door is open, it's going to print the index on top of the open door, which is a white background. If the door is closed, it's not going to do anything. And the whole point of this project is you need to see if you can determine what the open doors represent by the numbers that are presented. So let's try it again. There we go. Now it's printing the numbers. So the door is a 1-based index, but the actual is open starts at 0 because arrays are 0-based in Swift. So the 0 is open corresponds to the 1 door. So that's why the number that's printed is index plus 1. It's like it's working. You can slow down if you like. See the active door a little bit longer, but it would just take longer to show that it's working. Great, it looks like it's working. So see if you can figure out what the numbers for each open door represents, and at the very end of this video, I'll give you the answer. After watching this video, there's one thing that's bothering me, and that's the naming conventions I did. This view models has one view model for each view. And sometimes people use a naming convention, so this is the view model for the content view. They call it content view model. But since there's only one, I call it view models. But technically, it should be view model. And I want to rename that because if this is the first time someone new is watching a video, so if you're new to this view models might be confusing because you might think that more than one model is in the view models, but there's actually one for each view. So I'm going to rename that so it doesn't confuse anybody. The view models is going to have one model for each view. And I want to make sure that people didn't think that view models is going to have more than one model for a view. So other than that, I think everything looks good. If you like these videos, please help support my channel by subscribing to it, and you can be sure to never miss a new video. So what the numbers represent is the squares from 1 to 10. 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 4, 3 squared is 9, 4 squared 16, 5 squared 25, and so on, all the way up to 10. So I hope you enjoy this video. I'll be making one soon. Till then, happy computing.